Wow, 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 wow. There has been a lot of Nintendo Switch 2 announcements over the last 24 hours at Tokyo Game Show. And on top of that, there's some pretty crazy rumors going out there for the Nintendo Switch 2 that I thought would be interesting to talk about within this video. So I figured we would do another news video that covers everything that's been going on with Nintendo over the last few 24 hours. I don't know why I said few, because there's only one 24 hours. Either way, it's interesting to see all of this information come out since we just had this Nintendo Direct not even a week ago, but let's go ahead and jump into the news. This one I think is pretty funny because I remember when I made my review video on this game and everyone got mad at me originally, and then they were like, wow, Max, I think you're actually right. Lollipop Chainsaw is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game. They've confirmed that it's going to have higher visuals, higher resolution, better frame rate. Everything about this is going to be better. They've confirmed that this is coming out sometime in November, and they've confirmed that an upgrade path will be available to those who already own the game. What has not been addressed is the fact if it's going to be free or not for those who already own the game. Now, I will say I expect that this will be a paid upgrade, but I don't know if it's going to be a crazy paid upgrade. Something that I've seen with these Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrades, it's kind of been a few bucks add-on. So this is a third party, obviously not a first party game, so I expect the third party edition of this is probably going to be I don't know, $3 or $5, somewhere into that range. Or it could be a free update. Either way, if it's not a free update, I don't think they're going to charge a crazy amount for this, but I could be wrong. I just think it's funny because I talked about how Lollipop Chainsaw's frame rate on the Switch version was pretty crazy, and no one wanted to believe me. And I just thought it was the funniest thing to see people change their mind on it, and they were like, yeah, Max, I think you were right. I'm debating if I want to go back and review the Lollipop Chainsaw Nintendo Switch 2 edition when it arrives. You guys can let me know in the comments down below if that's something you want to see, since I reviewed the Switch 1 edition. They also haven't confirmed if there's going to be a physical release of this or not. Now, I do know that Limited Run did the Switch 1 edition. I think it's possible that Limited Run might want to do the Switch 2 edition if this company wants to make a physical version of the Lollipop Chainsaw Nintendo Switch 2 edition, as I'm sure that was a big release for Limited Run and the company that does Lollipop Chainsaw. Either way, I think this is exciting because I expect that this game is finally going to be at 60 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch 2. Alright, another game was announced at Tokyo Game Show. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to pronounce this. Looks like it's some sort of card anime game. It's been announced to have a Nintendo Switch 2 edition on top of an expansion pass coming to the game. It looks like it's going to be sold individually at $35 if you want just the Switch 2 edition of this card. You know, I want to attempt this, but at the same time, I feel like I should not attempt to say this. So I'm not going to attempt it. I'll just show you an image of the game. But they've announced to those who already own the game that if you want the Switch 2 upgrade, you just have to pay $10 for it. Which it looks like the Switch 2 edition is going to include things like 120 frames per second, mouse controls, 4K support, stuff like that. Now, I have no idea if this game is a big deal or not, but I see everyone going crazy about it over on my timeline, so I guess there's someone out there that's going to be very interested for this. Either way, it's another Nintendo Switch 2 edition game, which I think is so interesting that all these third parties have to specify that a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game is on there. Like, it's even on the box art. I don't know, do y'all find that weird? That is the only thing that I think is weird about these third-party games, like No Man's Sky, Shadow Labyrinth, all of these third-party games that get Switch 2 editions. They have to specify Switch 2 edition on the icon on top of the box art, even though the Switch 2 logo is on there. I don't know, it's interesting and different. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if Nintendo is requiring them to do that. It's very weird. Another game just got announced at the Tokyo Game Show for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is the R-Type Tactics 1 through 2. They even showed that it's getting a physical release on top of that. It's assumed to be a game keycard, but there hasn't been any confirmation if it's to be a game keycard or not. And it's coming out March 12th, 2026. All right, let's go into one of the bigger rumors right now. And to be completely honest, I think there's a chance that this is real, but, I say a big but, I think some of what's being reported is not necessarily true. Now, just a few weeks ago, it was found that Nintendo filed a patent for the fact that they would want to do achievements within the Nintendo Switch. With system reward points, stuff like that. They are calling it an achievement-like system. Now, Nintendo files patents all the time. Mike Odyssey has done a really good job of reporting these patents. But something that needs to be said is that these patents that get filled doesn't always end up happening. And I think a lot of us always jump to the conclusion that it's going to at some point happen. Like, for example, they actually patented the Virtual Boy a long time ago, and then out of nowhere, it got announced for the Nintendo Switch 2. I think there's been more patents that have happened before, but there's also been stuff that hasn't. So I feel like this is one to be on the lookout for. I wouldn't put all of your rocks into this one, as all these patents are kind of all over the place at times. But that is not stopping one of the more talked about leakers, even though they don't get everything right all the time. Nash Weedle is suggesting that he has also heard about a Nintendo achievement system coming, and he actually specified what to expect within this. Now, going off of his tweet here, he talks about that missions and rewards are gearing up for an update. Achievements are coming. New rewards that will be received depending on the game we play. Icons, wallpapers, points. Points will also be redeemed for rewards, but rewards will also be received directly by playing specific games or achieving certain achievements within the game. Using a specific weapon, defeating the boss without taking damage. You'll be able to see rewards and achievements that other users have earned and those that haven't, which I think is pretty cool if that ends up happening. By meeting certain conditions, rewards can be exchanged. You can choose your favorite rewards to be automatically redeemed when you have enough points. Mandatory to be a Nintendo Switch Online user. Now listen, I'm gonna be completely honest. Nash Weedle, in my personal opinion, is not exactly the most credible person to go off by. In fact, I know that a lot of stuff gets spread around, and he really, in my opinion, was trying to make a safe exit in case he was wrong about a Nintendo Direct in July. Because if you didn't know, he actually said that the Direct was going to happen. And in fact, I'm pretty sure his tweets came out right around the time that Beat 'em Up said that he was told about a Direct from that whole Nintendo thing. Obviously, we know that Beat 'em Ups did not get told a Direct. That was all a thing that he did a whole video on. You guys can check it out. But my whole point in bringing that up is Nash Weedle didn't start talking about a Direct until Beat 'em Up started talking about a July Direct. In fact, Nash Weedle said a specific week when this Direct was going to happen. And as we got closer, he started saying things like, I've had 19 sources tell me that the Direct is happening this week, but I've also been told by 2 other sources that it's happening at the end of the week. And I actually called him out on this. I felt like, hey, interesting tweet here. I felt like, you know, he was kind of changing things up since we were getting closer to the date. And he didn't like my tweet. In fact, he blocked me for me calling him out on this. Now, I understand people get told certain things, so it is what it is. I just have noticed that he has said certain things that have not actually ended up happening. He's been saying that a Pikmin 4 Nintendo Switch 2 edition was going to happen this year, I'm pretty sure. He's been talking about Bayonetta 1 through 3 getting some sort of Switch 2 game edition. He's been talking about an Ocarina of Time remake, which if that was to end up happening, that would be probably next year. There's been all sorts of stuff, and there has been things that he's gotten right before. But if you want me to be honest, I feel like he is now just saying this since they found out that that whole Virtual Boy patent happened, and he kind of wants to make like a safe guess here. But I could be wrong. He might know what he's talking about. It's just, I feel like 3 out of 10 times he's been correct recently. I feel like he had a pretty good track record. In fact, I'm pretty sure he said that there was going to be 2 directs in September. And I think now he's trying to say that, yeah, that Mario stuff was actually supposed to be a direct. He said all sorts of stuff. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. I wouldn't be surprised if an achievement system happened, though. As I said before, that I felt like Nintendo was going to add this at some point, because it's one of those things that makes so much sense. In fact, PlayStation 3, when it launched, it didn't get the achievement system till a later update. I do think it's a little bit disappointing if they make this a Nintendo Switch online only thing. Now, if they want the rewards and stuff to be locked behind that, I think that makes sense. But I think you should be able to see and get these achievements without having to have that membership. Now, they just announced a brand new Nickelodeon collection coming to the Nintendo Switch. Looks like this is going to focus on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis games. In fact, Limited Run is doing the physical release and also doing a collector's edition that looks pretty cool. I'm going to be honest though, I don't really want this. I want them to re-release games like Nicktoons Unite onto modern day systems. I think if you put those games onto this platform, it would be absolutely phenomenal. Those games were incredible. Attack of the Toy Bots, Globs of Doom, all of those games were so good, and I wish that they would do those rather than making like new games. That's going to be a hot take, but those games are so special to me and they need to be brought over. Has any of y'all played those games? I'm telling you, if you haven't played those games, look into it. Those games are classics. So they just dropped a brand new Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment trailer, and this game is looking absolutely phenomenal. I said in the direct that I thought this was looking to be one of the best Switch 2 games, and in this other trailer that's about 30 seconds of new footage, it continues to look good and a locked frame rate. On top of that, they have announced if you have a save file of Tears of the Kingdom and Age of Calamity, you get 2 separate exclusive weapons. I'm guessing they're going to be exclusive. If they're not exclusive, I guess you're getting them early. Either way, this is really cool and a game I cannot wait. It looks like that this game is going to do some pretty crazy things, and it looks like there's a possibility of more original Zelda characters coming from this particular game. I think a lot of people are hyped for this because this is essentially going to be the last game in the whole Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom timeline. So exciting times, I feel like. So we have some news on this Pokemon, I think Poka P? Is that what they're calling this game? I feel like that's a weird name. Basically, the Pokemon Animal Crossing game. Now, it was found that in the Japanese trailer, they confirmed that the game was actually coming out in spring 2026. However, the trailer that we got over here did not show any of that. I think this game looks really cool. However, graphically, I think it looks like a mess. And it's weird that it looks like a mess to me since Koei Tecmo is a big part of the development. I don't know how much they are a part of the development of this game because I know Koei Tecmo has had small parts in other Nintendo games in the past. But I'm hopeful that this game looks better graphically because it looks like Game Freak did it, if I'm honest. Either way, it's exciting to see this as I think a lot of people thought that this was going to be a late 2026 title. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is another rumor that looks to be probably true. They have found that Yakuza Kiwami 3 is popping up on Google searches through the company's website, and it's expected that this could be revealed sometime this week at Tokyo Game Show. Now, I'm putting this in here because there's a very good possibility that this game is coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, as these Yakuza games are starting to come to the platform way more. We already got 1 and 2 on the way, and we have 0 already on the Switch. So I think that this could be announced for the platform sometime this week. And for our last story, we have an unexpected Nintendo Switch Online update regarding the Game Boy Advance. We have Mr. Driller 2 coming, and on top of that, we have Kelowna Empire of Dreams. Now, this is a very unexpected update, I feel like, as I feel like the third-party stuff does not happen as much for Switch Online. Now, I'm aware that third parties exist within the online service, but I feel like this is a pretty big third-party update to the Game Boy Advance, and I feel like it was games that a lot of people was not expecting. So it's pretty cool to see these games arriving to the platform. Guys, that's everything I have for you. Definitely let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. Guys, I've been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, the Discord, the Instagram. Our merch store is also going to be the linked pinned comment down below. The store is going to close right at the end of September, I believe. So this is going to be the last time that this merch comes out. Whenever we do merch again, it'll probably be sometime next year. It'll be a totally different design. So that's going to be exciting. Either way, guys, I will see y'all in the very next video. Have a wonderful day or night whenever you are seeing this. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace! I feel like I might have messed up the outro, but I feel like recovery was pretty strong in that outro. So you guys can let me know if the recovery was strong in that one.